Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to do a trailer breakdown for the long-awaited trailer for Denis Villeneuve's Dune. Now, this is the first film attempt at Dune since the 80s attempt by David Lynch, as far as I'm aware. I believe there was a mini-series at one point that was actually fairly well received. But the David Lynch film was a complete and utter train wreck. If I remember correctly, it was directed by David Lynch, but that movie was a complete train wreck. It did not make anywhere close to what its budget was back. It was a flop in theaters, and it's one of the few films that David Lynch actually says that he doesn't really enjoy from his filmography. It's a film that he wished that he could do again, or do differently, or not do at all. So in this, just to be upfront about this, the only things of Dune that I have seen of the property is the original film from the 80s, and I think I remember watching the miniseries that they did very briefly, but other than that, I don't really know too much about the lore. Mainly, what I know is sand planet, sand people, sand worms, and mining sand. I believe those are really the only things that I remember. It all revolves around sand. I guess kind of like, Tatooine, but, instead the Sarlacc can, tunnel around the planet and fuck shit up. But, let's just kind of go into the trailer. And, by the way, this movie has a star-studded cast. There are so many recognizable actors in this. Timothee Chalamet is the lead. His father in the film is played by, Star Wars alumni Oscar Isaac. You have Marvel alum Dave Bautista, who's in there as well. DC. Jason Momoa is in there as this really kind of badass warrior character. Josh Brolin is also in there. Zendaya, who appears to play the love interest. A lot of people would remember her as the new Mary Jane from the MCU Spider-Man films. There are a lot of recognizable actors in this film. Now, that doesn't necessarily always translate to a good movie, but it's kind of a step in the right direction. At least you have people that are somewhat experienced at what they do. And you have people that are recognizable to audiences, which is really, I think, the main point of it, is to kind of draw people in with these actors. And Timothée Chalamet is kind of an up-and-comer right now. I know he was in Little Women last year, which was nominated for several Academy Awards, although I don't believe he was. Outside of that, I'm not overly familiar with his filmography, but in the trailer, he seems to do a good job. But we start out with him, and he's kind of outside, and you see, it's a close-up on his face. You see, a bunch of sand and stuff, going by. And he has this little monologue over it. And I'll get to the music in the trailer, too, because the music kind of kicks in after, the first 30 seconds. This is actually a very long trailer. This is a 3-minute trailer. So that's very long for a film. But I expect this film to be long because Dune is, from what I understand, is a very long book. Or might be a series of books. Or maybe at least a couple. But going into the actual trailer, we follow Timothée Chalamet's character pretty much throughout the entire trailer. We really don't go off of him for very long, and there's constant narrations by various characters. There's a few little lines of dialogue that are dubbed over. They show you a little bit of the visual effects and stuff that are going to be in the movie, which do look fairly good. There's this very kind of strange scene that they come back and revisit actually at the end of the trailer. There's this very beginning where Timothée Chalamet is talking to this woman, and he's explaining about how he has these visions in his dreams that in the past have come true. And she then asks him to put his hand in what I can only describe as a pain box. Because he puts his hand in this little box and he asks what's in it, and she puts a needle up to his neck and says, "If you remove your hand, you will die." And then he asks what's in the box, and she says, "Pain," and then he immediately starts convulsing violently in pain. Which, again, I don't know for people that are more familiar with the material, I don't remember the exact context of what happens before or after that scene. But, I mean, the acting was fairly good in the scene. The effects with the woman and the costume design and stuff I like. It feels kind of like old school colonial, but I guess that kind of makes sense with the Dune universe. So, as we go through that, then we start going into these kind of weird, we kind of pick, random little characters that we see. We have this whole little montage in there of Jason Momoa, who's this badass kind of, warrior character with this, Tonto kind of, short katana-looking sword, who's just carving through people. We also get, a little bit of a glimpse at these devices that I guess let the let various people, fight at like lightning speed or something like that, because it shows they have these little glue blue glow, and he once that happens, they start moving and they start like almost like shifting. Because it looks like their physical forms are kind of getting out of sync, so maybe it's some kind of a weird like force field device or something that allows them to do that. But again, something that somebody's who is a bit more familiar with the lore can probably tell me about, unless this is something they just introduced. But those scenes are kind of interesting. You get to see that in action a little bit with Jason Momoa, and Josh Brolin also has a little bit of a standoff with Timothee Chalamet at one point, where it looks like they're training. So Josh Brolin's probably going to play some kind of like a mentorish character. You see a fat man who's submerged in like a mud bath, which is really weird. I'm assuming that's the one that I think is this weird like fat gluttony character. Which ideally, they do make him literally look like a giant turd at one point during this during this trailer, which is kind of amusing. And then you also go through Zendaya, her character, and Oscar Isaac as well. We get little glimpses of this. It appears that, Timothée Chalamet, they explained that basically his people are kind of an invading force on this planet. It's assumed that kind of the sand people that are there, or the people that live in the wastes, are the natives, people that have like blue glowing eyes. So you have that, which again, it's an interesting little visual, but we've seen it in, blue glowing eyes is not anything that's going to kind of freak people out. We've seen that in the Riddick movies. Village of the Damned, shit like that. But I do like the aesthetic. I think it does set them apart a little bit. And then kind of at near the end of the trailer, where we come back to that scene where Timothée Chalamet has his hand in the pain box, and the woman who's there, who has the needle to his throat, is saying some animals will chew off their own hand, to escape with their lives. What will you do? So it's kind of they're portraying it as he has two choices. He can either cut his hand off and live, or he can pull his hand out, and presumably she will then immediately kill him. So that's a little bit kind of interesting. Again, I don't necessarily know the context of that scene. And then the money shot of the trailer, the end of the trailer, which is really kind of what I wanted to talk about, which is really the only huge effect that we see in most of the trailer, other than, a few shots of like these transport ships and stuff landing. And they also, by the way, before I get to that, actually, they also do explain that, I guess, Oscar Isaac's character, he rules over the entire planet where they're from, and he's losing control of it. And I guess this is kind of his little like last ditch effort or something to keep like his government alive or something like that. They give that a little bit away, which does give a little bit away of the motivation, at least of why the main characters are there. So I mean, that's not something that's necessarily new for anybody that's even mildly familiar with Dune like me, because I know it's like a rebellion, an invading force, and all that stuff. There were spacefaring people and things like that. The story takes place on this little planet, but interplanetary travel is still possible in the Dune universe. So we go into that stuff with Timothée Chalamet a little bit, but the trailer does not commit the cardinal sin of trailers. Again, I'm going based on the idea that you don't know the lore of Dune, at least not very well. So the general audience, basically. And the thing that they have with it is that as you go into the trailer, when you have all the stuff that's happening, when you have all of the events that are unfolding before you, and they kind of show you these little glimpses of stuff, they never show you anything that is too revealing. Let's put it that way. So it doesn't commit the cardinal sin. It doesn't tell the story of the movie. It does give you the motivation, like I said. But outside of that, it doesn't tell you what happens at the end. It doesn't even really tell you a lot about what happens during the movie. And again, this is a 3-minute trailer. So they did real good on that. I think the guy that edited this did a very good job. Now, the musical choice for the trailer, again, before I get to the end part, the musical choice for the trailer, I don't really like. I think it feels very out of place, especially with the end of the trailer, because it should be crescendoing. It should be building up near the end of the trailer, and it's not. It kind of just stays at that same level. And really what it is it's a different version of Pink Floyd's Eclipse. and it's sung by a different singer, I believe. And they don't use any of the background music; they replace it with like this ambient style music. They do that with trailers a lot, where they'll have these alternate cuts of various songs that kind of match up. Sometimes they'll use actual cuts. The first Suicide Squad trailer used Bohemian Rhapsody, I believe. But with this, they're using this different version, but again, it kind of just stays flat. It doesn't build up to a crescendo like what you're seeing on screen, because what you're seeing on the trailer is building up to a crescendo, but the music just it never goes with the visuals after a point, so it kind of splays off. So I gotta discredit them a little bit for that. Maybe you should have tuned it up a little bit, changed that background music slightly, make it a little bit different. But now we get to the final part. We get to the end of the trailer, and the end of the trailer shows the money shot. It shows the giant, like, destructive sandworm that these desert people eventually learn how to ride, I guess, or something like that. And the worm looks good. It doesn't look like it doesn't look necessarily like your prototypical like shitty worm. It actually has, it has these like rows of what looks like teeth and stuff. It has a massive mouth. So it's a little bit different in that respect, but it doesn't seem like a cookie cutter thing to me. It seems like that somebody put a little bit of effort into that. The effect when it comes out of the ground is actually really good. I like that when they have this kind of wave. It looks almost like an avalanche of sand. I think that effect was very well done, but overall, as somebody who's not overly familiar with the franchise, looking at this trailer, I actually liked it. I'm kind of excited for this movie. I'm not solely invested or anything like that, but I'm interested to see how it's going to do, and I'm interested to watch it and kind of see how the narrative is and see how it kind of treats people that aren't as well versed in the lore as others. How does it not indoctrinate, but how does it introduce you into the universe is, I guess, a better question. But as usual, I will link the trailer in the description below for anybody that would like to watch it, and in the comments, just put are you excited for Dune? Have you watched the trailer? Do you like the trailer? Do you like what you see so far? Do you think this is a horrible idea? Dune is an unadaptable property. As usual, put your thoughts below. I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications. Hit the like button. Subscribe. And remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?